You are listening to the Retina UK National Peer Support Group Autumn Meeting, recorded Tuesday, 26th of September 2023.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Retina UK National Meeting. My name is Mark Baxter. I'm the Information Coordinator, and tonight we are going to be talking about talking newspapers and the talking. My guest this evening, June Little. She's Chair of Trustees for the Listener, a trustee for the Talking News. Thank you very much, June, for joining us this evening. It's very much appreciated. You've got a wonderful presentation, which we will share at the end of this meeting, our follow-up. So if anyone is interested in this presentation, it will be by way of an in that. Over to you, June. Thank you so much. And please tell us about the talking newspapers.
Mark, thank you very much, and thank you for such a very warm welcome. Mark and I spoke much earlier in the year, and I can't believe we're finally here. He asked me to join you at this meeting. I think it was back in April time. So delighted to do so. My name is June Little, as Mark has said. I am actually a trustee of the Talking News Federation, but I'm also chair of trustees of my own talking newspaper here in Cheltenham, and we're the Cotswold Listener. So I'm actually going to be talking about both. So it gives you an idea how the Talking News Federation fits in with talking newspapers and those of us that are around the country nationally. So the Talking News Federation, who are we and what do we do? We're actually a charitable incorporated organisation run entirely by volunteers. We don't have any paid members of staff at all, and we're overseen by a board of elected trustees, of which I'm one of them. We do have the TNF objectives, and they're followed through then into our own talking newspapers. But it's to promote good practice and the efficiency and effectiveness of its member organisations. So the talking newspapers are its members' organisations for the benefit of blind or partially sighted people or those labouring under some temporary or permanent incapacity or disability makes reading a strain. So it's actually those people who can't access the written word. To support and represent and develop the work of talking news organisations which undertake the systematic provision of news and other materials by digital or analogue transmission throughout the United Kingdom. So I should say there are around 300 talking newspapers nationally, and we cover Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland and England. And we're reasonably distributed around those. But it's also to assist in the formation of new talking newspapers. I have to say that work hasn't been hugely followed in recent years. And in fact, it's been mainly looking after those talking newspapers that are in danger of failing. The pandemic affected us hugely because we couldn't get some talking newspapers couldn't get the recordings out. They lost a lot of volunteers, and in some instances they couldn't access their premises because their studios were in public buildings. So we've had to do a lot of work post-pandemic to get a number of talking newspapers back up to strength. But it is working, and we're hearing fairly early on now if there are any in trouble, and we can absolutely support them. So the Talking News Federation, it exists to support and assist, as I say, some 300 local talking newspapers throughout the United Kingdom. And it enables us as talking newspapers to deliver audio to blind, partially sighted and print disabled people, because it is more, it is about accessing the written word, and very often people with Parkinson's or MS or any of those aren't able to access the written word, and very often, in fairness, that they do have a sight disability as well. So they are also part of who we serve. So the impact of TNF is that the local TNs and the listeners are the heart of everything that we do at TNF. If we didn't, everything we do in both talking newspapers, local talking newspapers and TNF, there's no point as existing if we don't have any listeners. The listeners are absolutely centre and centre of what we do and why we do it. And we are constantly, and we'll come to it later, looking for feedback from our listeners, talking to our listeners, including them in a lot of things that we do, because at the end of the day, that is who we are serving. The diagnosis of print disabilities such as macular degeneration and your own, which is retina, can be disempowering, and many sufferers speak of the condition as very isolating. And that's something else, again, we know within the local TNs, that so many of our listeners live on their own. And during the pandemic, we were and continue to be a lifeline to so many of them. With the main thing, though, that many regard the service provided by TNs as a way to counter loneliness and an opportunity to continue to stay connected to the local news information. Because again, that is what we record every week. We record local news in their area and from the local newspapers. In our news section, we don't use the nationals at all. We can get that, the RNLB record that, and we can actually buy that in if we wanted to. But the whole point of us is actually a local news and local recording for local people. Just to finalise this part on the TNF, we have 1,054 newspapers and magazines are recorded every year. We have 25,000 listeners receive a regular local TN or magazine, and we have 10,000 volunteers who deliver the service. So that gives you an idea of the size of the TNs and TNF who look after us, because there's so many other things that we get from. Every TN is individual, and it's registered in its own as a charity on its own. But what TNF gives us, because as a charity we need to know about the Charities Commission, we need to have policies, we need to have processes, etc. And what TNF do, they have a bank of things like that actually as a TN we can draw on, because most of us are quite small. Well, some small, some larger ones, but it saves us if we can actually go to TNF and pull something off the shelf and then adapt it for us. So that's TNF. I'll move on now to the Cotswold Listener, which is my own TN, and who we are and what we do. As I've said, we are a registered charity. We were established in November 1978 by the Lions, the local Lions Club, who raised funds and recruited readers and technicians. And it took them about 2 years. And we started in 1978, so we're 46 years old. Again, we're run entirely by volunteers. We're in a rented office and studio in Rodney Road in Cheltenham, which is central Cheltenham. And we're funded again, as TNF is, entirely by donations, private individuals, local companies, and occasionally from other local charities. So we don't receive any monies from any government or local authority. The activity we carry out every week is to produce a high quality weekly talking newspaper and magazine for supply completely free of charge to blind and sighted impaired listeners and others unable to access the written word. Also, we provide especially designed players to listen to our recordings. The aims of certainly the Cotswold Listener is to help sight impaired to stay in touch with what is happening in their local community and stay aware of issues that are of interest to them. We enable listeners to live their daily lives more independently by giving them information that they wouldn't normally get. We provide information, entertainment and engagement. And we know from families and our listeners themselves that we're actually known as a reliable, weekly, familiar friend, because they know our voices, they know the teams, they know how we're set up, and they have their favourite teams as well. We have actually 8 news teams, which is quite a lot to manage, but they have their favourite teams, and we have 4 magazine teams, and again they have their favourite presenters, and they love meeting them at the AGM or any other get-togethers we have. So what do we produce every week? Every week we produce a recording of between 80 and 120 minutes long, and we record 51 weeks of the year. The only week we take off is between Christmas and New Year. So the recording that goes out the week before Christmas, believe me, is a bumper edition. This year it was 5 hours long, and apparently they loved it, and we got an awful lot of feedback. But the recording comprises of a news, magazine, TNF soundings, which is something we get from the Talking News Federations, and a magazine extra, which are all the extra recordings that our volunteers record outside of the magazine and the news, and it goes into what we call the bank. And then that's then added at different times to the recordings. We take the news from the Gloucestershire Live website, the Cotswold Journal and Punchline websites, so all local papers. We also produce a magazine every week as part of that recording, and it's an eclectic mix of articles and material to inform and entertain. The recordings are then copied onto USB sticks and dispatched every Thursday by Royal Mail's Articles for the Blind scheme, providing free of charge first-class postage service, well, when it's working properly, which it wasn't last year, but never mind, we got round it. Also available on our website, British Wireless for the Blind BWBF app, and also the Alexa smart speaker. We did have Google, but unfortunately they decided they didn't want us on their platform any longer, so it came off. But having said that, we haven't got a huge number of Alexa listeners anyway. So who are our listeners? We currently have 150 listeners. As we've said, they benefit from the Royal Mail's Articles for the Blind. 82% of our listeners are 70 and above. The actual range of our listeners are 21 to 101, and that's no exaggeration. You try then trying to make sure that every week, 51 weeks of the year, whatever we record is relevant to every one of those age groups. But going by the feedback we get, we know it is. I'll just explain on our 21-year-old. She isn't actually blind, but she used to live in Cheltenham. She doesn't now, and her father contacted us, and she is completely paralysed following an accident, and the only thing that she can move are her eyes. So she has something called Stargaze. It's an application that she can talk or she can move whatever it is on with her eyes and control everything she does with her eyes. So her father rang us and told us about this, and we said, well, I have no idea how we can help, but she wanted the Cheltenham News particularly. So we got together, BWBF, our own technical team, and the Stargaze people, and they actually managed to upload it onto her system. So she now listens to it controlled by her eyes. And I think the only reason I'm telling you this tale is because it shows that actually you can overcome so many things. We had done the technology in this case helped us hugely, but she's been with us about a year now, and we did wonder if she would get fed up with it, but she absolutely hasn't. And her dad tells us she still enjoys it and looks forward to it being downloaded for her every week. And then you go to the other extreme. We do in our recordings, we do a birthday slot every month. And one of our listeners phoned us in August just to say just to remind us that she was 100 on the 9th of August, and were we going to read it out? We absolutely were, and we assured her it was already on the list. And while she was talking to us, one of the things that we've done all the way through lockdown is a 10-minute exercise sat in your chair. And so Mrs. Neal was telling us that she felt she ought to do a bit more exercise, bearing in mind she's 100. We weren't sure that this was a good idea. But what we did, we actually put together a box set for her and sent it off on a memory stick. And she just absolutely loved it. I don't know how much exercise she managed to do, but again, it was something that she wouldn't have had that opportunity if we hadn't done something like that, if she didn't know about it, and if we weren't able to add to what we do. And we do that constantly. We get, because the other things that we do is we record plays. We actually do monologues, and we do a lot of outside broadcasting. The outside broadcasting you can listen to on our website if you want to, because they're all on there. The latest one on there, I think, is Riding for the Disabled, which we did recently. We do regular marketing because it really is required, because inevitably, because we do get a decline in numbers owing to age, but our numbers have stayed around 150. It doesn't matter how many we lose, we seem to, new listeners are coming through. We've said the data in our area, it's estimated that visually impaired people will increase by 55% by 2030, between 2010 and 2030. And we are seeing that. We're seeing an increase in people coming through. You will get the deck of slides, but there is a photograph there of the player, and that's the new RNIB player. I don't know if any of you've seen it or if you've had it. That only came out. It was actually launched here in March at a TNF function or event. It's only one of our listeners have it at the moment. We were a bit wary because she's 92 and she got it new at 92, but she has an engineering background and she loves it. So it's had some good feedback. So you've heard about our listeners. Our volunteers, we're 60 in total, so we're quite a big TN. And in any normal week, we have 18 to 20 volunteers in some activity: administration, marketing, reading, recording, copying, and getting out the memory stick. Added up over the year, we spend over 1,000 hours a year producing our talking newspaper or our recording. We operate on a rota basis. All the teams are fixed, and some of our volunteers carry out several roles. They don't just read, or they don't just record. They do lots of other things as well. Anything that's needed within the talking newspaper. Again, our age range of volunteers, our youngest is 14 and our eldest is 86. So we cover the same range virtually as our as our listeners. Our 14-year-old, Edward, he's come to us to do his Duke of Edinburgh Award, bronze. He didn't want to go into a charity shop or anything like that. He wanted to use technology. And he's actually the third one we've had. But Edward is actually staying with us. He's loved it so much. He'll only be able to record in an evening or during the holidays. It's been fabulous over the months to see him blossom. And he's very authoritative now during the recording. So yes, he's a real success for us. And our youngest reader is Connie. She's 16. She's a sixth former. She came to us again. She wanted to do something different. She wanted to volunteer and do something different. And I expected her to leave this year because obviously you've only got them for a finite time, but she's not at all. She's staying with us. So that's really good news. They all love doing what they do. The actual roles there within our talking newspaper, we have 7 trustees who we run the TN. We've got 4 administrators who are in the studio during the week. Copiers we need because every week we copy. We have, as I've said, 8 news teams, and that's 4 readers, a news editor and a sound recorder, and the magazine teams. And we also have 2 audio describers, and it's our audio describers that do the outside broadcasting. So that they do enjoy. But one exciting thing that we're just about to launch, I don't know, well, no, it will be a success. And this is our future. We've decided to launch a young Cotswold listener, and this is aimed at 18 to 30-year-olds. It'll be edited by a similar age group for appropriate content. It won't be news, it will be articles. It'll be recorded by a similar age group, so that again is going to be 18 to 30. The technical aspects are managed by a similar age group, and Edward actually has got that role. He's going to be recording it. And we'll do it, frequency will be once a month as a podcast. Now, I'm in my 70s. I have no idea what a podcast is, but I'm told it's what the 18 to 30 pluses actually enjoy. So we've decided that we're doing this, and we're actually talking to one of the local grammar schools, which is actually where Edward came from, to get this off the ground. And we're actually going to incorporate 1 or 2 other things because we'd quite like to make it international if we can, or international content, not go international, but to actually bring in, certainly for that group, because that's, I believe, is something they are interested in. So it'll be articles, it'll be what's on, it'll be about an hour and a half long, and we'll do that on a monthly basis. But the background to this is that our listener trustee was at a meeting, and she was talking to a young man. This was about 3 weeks ago, a month ago, talking to a young man from the Leonard Cheshire Homes who is visually impaired. I believe he's completely blind. And he was saying that there is nothing for his age group, either a magazine or a what's on. It was more for him what's going on in the local area that he might be able to go to or might be interested in. And Julie came back to the trustees and said, right, what are we going to do? And this is what we've come up with. It's got a working title of the Young Cotswold Listener, but I think we're going to have to change that because I was talking to the other 5 TNs round me. We always meet up for meetings about 4 times a year, and they'd actually like to contribute. So it's going to have to be Gloucestershire something, I think. But we do know of a small group of people who are visually impaired. We know of about 15 or 16, but like everything, it might be small, but my word, it'll probably grow. So that's the end of my presentation, and those slides will, I believe, Mark, will be going out as well.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, June. That was such an inspirational presentation, especially the impact of what talking newspapers can actually do for not just the VI community, but any community that struggle to find local news and resources and magazines. It's absolutely brilliant. In regards to the audio device from the RNIB, if you've got the information about that, I'll be more than happy to share that in our follow-up email along with the audio recording and also the presentation. Well, not to mention the feedback survey that we can have a brief about. If anyone's got any questions for June, or if she just wants to fire off a couple of the questions to the group about some feedback. I honestly don't think you can actually improve your services anymore. They're absolutely fantastic, and you guys can be. You should all be congratulated what you're actually doing. The amount of listeners, just the impact you have, and snatching getting the younger generation actually involved as well, which is something that we're really keen on doing and upwards for Retina UK as well, a younger person's peer support network as well. So I think I can learn a lot from you, June, about what you're doing there at the Cotswold Listener and also the Cotswold News Federation. Has anybody got any questions for June? People on mute.
I think Colin's just taken mute off.
Can I just say, well done on being aboard and actually listening and actually progressing things forward. A lot of these things tend to be for the older generation. Obviously, we need to move forward. I would go a step further and I would try and bring it down age-wise as well, to get the younger ones in the future when that becomes a success. Because what you're doing is really opening doors for the future and giving you a success for the future. So well done for that. It's nice to see someone moving in the right direction. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. I think I feel very privileged to work with the people that I work with at the Cotswold Listener. They are such a committed crew, and I don't. The ideas that they come up with, I mean, this isn't my idea at all. I may well implement it because I'm chair of trustees, but the credit has to go to the people around me, because they come up with an idea, but then they do want to run with it. It's not a case of handing it over. I might open the doors, but it'll be other people that will take it forward. And that to me is the evidence of it, of a good TN, because they're all passionate. I can't think of any one of them that isn't committed to doing what we're doing. And they're very much, when you talk to our volunteers, I will say I've come to it. I have no knowledge of the visually impaired world at all. I was brought in because of my background, but I've learned that I'm learning every day. But most of our volunteers, they have either a relative or a close friend who is visually or has been visually impaired, and they just want to do and may improve lives for other people. We were actually being interviewed on the local radio, one team, and the interviewer was asking them, why did they become a volunteer with a TN? And of the four sat there, every one of them had personal knowledge and experience of the visually impaired world. And I sat there in absolute awe, because I thought you couldn't have better people doing what they're doing. And that's talking to other visually impaired people every week in, week out.
I think you're definitely on the right track, because like you were saying, podcasts are the way forward. And that opens so many doors for you guys, but also for the listener. It seems to be the trend at the moment. So I would say you're definitely on the right track.
Can I just come back though, Colin? You just said about go to a lower age group.
Yeah.
How would you do that?
Well, I think you're on the right track with podcasts, definitely. But I think you certainly, when you get your youngsters involved, they will open doors for you they'll have a more of an idea of what we need to do to get the younger ones in. So obviously that's something that's very important, because you need to harness what you've got and grow it, because you've got that steady number of 150, I think. So you need to try and grow that. So I think your youngsters will develop. They'll do stuff like music, and very, very much things that are current at the time. So like sport, it'll start opening it up itself. And then you'll get the word spreading wrong and obviously if you're in touch with Retina UK, they can advertise it in that as well, if you speak nice to Mark, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay. No, well, thank you for your words of it. I mean, I'm excited by it, but just talking to you, that's fabulous.
Sorry, we had a comment that the Guildford talking newspaper has ceased. How would you sort of, if you get that type of feedback, how could a newspaper that have obviously folded for whatever reason, whether it's funding, whether it's getting the volunteers in place, how could they get that back if they missed?
It would depend why they've ceased. It's one that's not passed over my desk, so I'm not sure. But we have a development manager within TNF who will work with any TN that's in trouble or needs support. So they do have a single point of contact. But I say it depends. I know we've lost 2 or 3 during the pandemic. I mean, we continued and sent out our recording. We didn't stop. We went into lockdown on the 20th or whatever it was of March. We recorded in the studio the week before, and we recorded remotely the following week. And we did that all the way through. We didn't stop recording. I mean, your alternative is, what I've seen is that if there is another TN close by, they will pick up the news from that area. They'll extend their own geographic area, if you like, and it may be that that's the case. But I can find out, Mark. A simple answer, I don't know. I mean, my own geographical area is quite big, because it's Cheltenham, Tewkesbury, and the North Cotswolds, which is right up to Chipping Campden, which is, I don't know, a long way from us, but that's the area we have to cover. So, it's not beyond other TNs that can do that.
Yeah, well, I can find out a little bit more information, but if there is anything that you can pass over, I can forward that on, to see obviously how you can get involved in a different talking newspaper from a different area, but still or keep up with local and current affairs from that area as well. So I can follow that up. That's brilliant. Thank you. Has anyone got any other questions?
The only other thing I had, one of the things I was going to road test it, or will road test it with you, is a listener survey. Now, we normally do these every 2 years, but because the last one ended slam bang in the middle of the pandemic, so we couldn't do it. So we're just about to send this one out. Mark's got a copy, and he is going to send it round. But just to say, the emphasis for us is on the quality of the recording. We're very particular about that because, as a number of you will know, that very often with sight loss goes some hearing loss. So there's a few things from a TM point of view. We can't have anybody with a strong accent because, you know, if you've got a hearing problem, it's not going to be as clear as it might be. Fortunately, I've never had to turn anybody away yet because I've not had anybody with a strong accent, but it depends where you are. And the other one is content. The news is the news. There's nothing we can do about that. We don't censor it. We report it as it is. But the magazine is very different. So what we're asking our own listeners about is, you know, what do they, well, question 5, are there any subjects that you would like to hear more or less often in the news or magazine? Do you have any particular interest there that we could consider including them in the news or magazine? So we're really interested in what interests the listener and what they'd like to hear. So as this survey is going out at the beginning of October, and we'll respond to it once we've collated everything. But there's quite a few, that they're not long questions, but the answers are actually going to make it so we can really target what our listeners want. And so we're not giving them what we think they would want or what they need, you know, what we think they need. It's them telling us what they want to hear. The only sort of controversial one we have is we do the death notices. Now, some of our listeners hate it and some of our listeners love it because, as they've said, they might know their friends died, but they love to hear their names read out. It's an acknowledgement of their life. And I'm going to be interested because this is the first survey that we'll have done since we introduced it. So it's either something that's going to survive the survey or not. We will see. We will see. But Mark's going to send it out, and any feedback you want to give, either to your own local TN or to me, I'd love to receive it.
Thanks, June. And also, I'll be more than happy to collaborate on when it comes to interest-based topic that your listeners may be interested in, based on some of the feedback and the attendance of some of the peer groups that we've done, or anything from our survey that we actually did last year. I'd be more than happy to collaborate with you on that, just so our communities across the UK are getting, they want to listen to, anywhere from, like Colin said, from sport to technology, and everything in between. We're more than happy to support with that. That feedback survey will actually be attached to the follow-up email. But thank you very, very much. Anyone got any other questions?
I'd like to pick up on this content business. You've mentioned how important it is. I'd like to ask how that content is assessed. Do you have an editorial panel, anything like that? And can you give some examples how content has changed over the years?
I probably can't over the years because I've only been involved with the Talking Newspapers for the last 5 years. So I haven't got the experience that so many more have. We have always done regular surveys. We've always done surveys every 2 years. And one of the things that we always end up with is at least an A4, if not 2 A4s, a list of things that they hate, things that they love, and things that they'd like to hear more of. So the news we can't change. That's what it is, and that's what it's reported. But where all that goes into is into the magazine. So we get articles from all sorts of sources because we are allowed to, we cover history, we cover gardening, we cover local history, national history, we do. We've done a whole series at listeners' requests. So a lot of these are requests, listeners' requests on would you believe bees, the life cycle of bees, and we're just about to, or we can't because the bees are asleep, but we will be actually interviewing. Oh no, you've no idea of my life, believe me. They are asleep at the moment. So we were too late to interview the beekeeper. So we're going out to Harry's Bees in the spring when the bees wake up, and we will interview the beekeepers. Slugs was another thing. And our listeners, we know because they speak to us, bearing in mind that some do have some peripheral vision. So they write little notes that go in the pouches and come back to us. And they tell us if they've liked it or they haven't liked it. Usually they have. So we did a whole series on the life cycle of a slug. We've done fishes. These are all recent ones. And history is a great one. People do love history. They do love literature. We do a lot on authors' lives, etc. And that triggers huge discussion amongst our listeners. Not so much new authors, but sort of Daphne du Maurier and people like that. It just triggers so many memories for them. And again, it is it's a talking topic when they're with other people, or it's something that they'll talk to us about, because we do phone our listeners regularly to keep in touch.
Absolutely, but it's such a variety and a range of different topics. And I think sometimes that is what your community sometimes can be crying out for. It's good you're actually listening to what they would like to talk about. Like I say, anything from bees, all the way up to Shakespeare. It's absolutely brilliant. Does that answer your question, Martin?
No, he's on mute.
Okay, yeah, I'm back again. Yes, thank you very much. I was wondering whether you got anybody interested in GCHQ, actually.
We have a lot of volunteers. We have a lot of retired spies from GCHQ, and we have some existing employees of GCHQ. What do you mean to go and interview them?
Well, you talked about interviewing beekeepers. You didn't say anything about interviewing slug keepers, but I thought you could possibly interview somebody up top from GCHQ and see what they had to say.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Because we've got so many retired spies who are our volunteers, and I say we've got some people who work at GCHQ currently. I wonder if we could get in. That would be interesting, because one of the things I was on a podcast with a group of people not that long ago, and one of them was one of the aeronautical engineering companies. So I said to him, would you be interesting for us to come out and interview? He said, oh, probably. So we're going to. But again, some of our listeners, Spirax Sarco and oh gosh, the name's just gone, another aeronautical, Smiths Industries. Number of our listeners are ex-employees or their families have been. So again, they're interested in local companies, and we do keep in touch that way.
You've mentioned podcasts, so you're not so far behind the times then?
I have no idea how they work. I've been on them. I've been interviewed on them. And then it goes off. I have no idea. And I'm for the young Cotswold listener, we're very fortunate. We've got a very new volunteer who's joined us, and she's ex-BBC, and she's actually going to train the youngsters in reading, etc. And she's got her own podcast company. So over to you, Serena. It won't be me.
Brilliant. The good thing is about the Cotswold Listener and actually the Talking News Federation in general, for the youngsters, as we've been talking about, you mentioned you've got a lad there of 40. It seems to be an excellent way of encouraging people to get into the media industry or broadcasting, or news presenting, anything to do with that industry. Good stepping stone, even if they're learning as a volunteer, the amount of resources and support they would get. And you mentioned Duke of Edinburgh as well, but if someone's actually doing GCSEs or they're studying at university in media, whether it's television or whether it's actually working for a national newspaper, it's an amazing opportunity. So if anyone has any sons, daughters, cousins, nephews, nieces that really want to get into industry, the Talking News Federation and the business is a good to start. Do you have any kind of programs that you can help enhance skills so they can take it wider world, make a living from it?
Well, the only example I can give, and it's the Cotswold Listener. We had a first year sixth former contact us, and she was one of the grammar schools in Gloucester. She lived in the forest, so I'm not sure how she got to. I don't know how she got to us. Anyway, she did, and she wanted to be a news editor. Now, the news editor collates all the news articles for a team, and it's all done online. We don't actually cut out newspapers or anything like that. It's actually coming offline, and that's how it's produced. And then that's produced as a bundle that goes in, and then that's read, and it's all typed up and it's all properly presented. And Eleanor came to us, and she wanted to do journalism, and she couldn't find anything to do while she was studying her A levels. So she came to us, and we said, well, the only thing that we could anywhere remotely like it is a news editor. Well, she took to it like a duck to water. It was absolutely brilliant. And we have said subsequently, she was one of our best, because when you take stuff out of the newspaper, the grammar and the English isn't always good. And when you're reading it out to our listeners, it has to be good. And she could put it in such a way that it read beautifully, it flowed. And she subsequently went on to Birmingham University to do a journalist's degree. So that was a direct, and I know I had to do a letter for her that went to the university as part of her application. And she'd been with us, I think it was just over 2 years doing that. And she said for her, it confirmed what she wanted to do. So anybody that approaches us, like a bit like Edward, and the fact that he was only 14, well, that brings up so many safeguarding issues, because he can't come into the studio on his own. He's got to have his mum with him. And, there's no way around it. That's what you've got to do. So we've got mum in the corner. We've got Edward controlling 4 readers, and, making sure the news is as it is. But my word, hasn't he done it? But again, our sound recorders, they're all experienced. They're very good at training. We've got Callum, who's just joined us. He's a 3rd year university student, but he's actually staying with us. He's not leaving Cheltenham, thank goodness. And he is recording and journalists, and again, journalism. And what he wants to get on. He wants to be a news editor as well. Well, at the minute, we haven't got any vacancies. So I think he's trying to convince a few just to stand down a minute while he can have a go. But, it's such an unusual charity in what you can do, and it's local. If these people live locally, then, you know, we'll help them to the nth degree. You know, if there's anything, I say, Edward, he's been my youngest, and I looked at it and I said to his mum, I'm sorry, you're going to have to come in with him every time. And she said, oh, that's all right. So she sits in the corner. I think she brings a book.
You don't get her to do anything. I would actually have her on the grindstone as well, you know, collating.
No, it's okay. She'll be a reader before Edward.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, if she likes to read, you know, go where her strengths are. So yeah.
No, yeah, that's it. No, my background is HR, so I'm a great one for forward planning. So yeah.
But it's good that you're giving someone so young that opportunity to learn new skills, whereas other organisations, charities might frown upon it, even if they do have a parent or guardian on premises. But you know, it's good that he's learning new skills, you know, which he will take out into the big wide world, you know, and you never know where that path might lead him. So it's very commendable what you guys do. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, June, for your presentation and speaking today. It's almost 8 o'clock. I'm sure you guys want to get on with the rest of your evening. Just a couple of points and things to look out from Retina UK that are coming up very soon. This week, we do have our webinar about Ask the Expert, which is Sam Silver at 7 o'clock on Thursday. You can make that one if you've got any questions regarding inherited sight loss, then please jump on that one and ask some questions. Our next webinar for October is going to be on October the 12th, and it's going to be focused around access to work. So if you know anyone that is in the workplace or you know has any experiences with access to work, we've got a chat from Thomas Poppas about some of the services that you can actually get through the ATW scheme, for example, worker, technology, etc. I know I would be lost without access to work. Caroline is to my right. She is not only my wife, but she is also my worker as well, and on comms and helping me with the things that I can't see. So if you're interested in anything to do with access to work, please come along Thursday, the 12th of October. We're not doing a webinar in November, but we will be back webinars in December, and that one will be in around medical intelligence. AI is doing within all as well. Look out for that. Keep an eye on our newsletter and also our web. In terms of peer support, I mentioned earlier our winter group or the national group is going to be on the 11th of January, and we have a lady called Lucy Hodges, MBE, and she is from GBR Blind Sailing. So if anybody wants to learn anything about blind sailing or how you can get involved in your local area, then she is going to be talking about what does GBR Blind Sailing and how you get involved. So you can check that one out again. That's on Thursday the 11th. And local groups, what we've got coming up. So 4th of October, we've got Glasgow, and then we have Manchester on the 15th, Midlands on the 14th, and then we've got Belfast and East Midlands. So East Midlands is online, and then Belfast is, if anyone's joining us or listening from Belfast, then they're off to the Gardens, as so are West Midlands, Birmingham Gardens, Midlands group, and then the Manchester group are going to be returning to Wardorf, where they will be a talk on, I think can't remember now, All information is available on our website and also in our newsletter that went out on Thursdays about our communication, where you can find out more. If you would like more information, services and what we call a helpline on 0800 111 4000, or you can email us at info@retina. Alternatively, call our office, speak to our friend Arth, and our direct number is 01280 821. And just one last thing before we all depart. At the end of October, on the Saturday the 28th, I mentioned my love heights. At the beginning of this meeting, I will be taking part in my 5th charity skydive in Brackley. So if anybody lives near Brackley, not far from Buckingham, please come to Hinton-on-Hedges Parachute Club and watch myself out in full Halloween fancy dress on Saturday the 20th to raise vital funds that we need to be able to support and the UK. That is everything. Me. I'd like to say a massive thank you to everyone that's joined us. Thank you to June Little for presenting today, and for Caroline, who is on the comms. Thank you very much, Caroline. And from all of us, including myself, I wish you a very lovely evening, and we'll see you in the winter. Thank you very much for joining us.
We hope you have enjoyed this recording. If you have any questions, queries, or wish to leave any feedback, then please leave it in the comment section below. Alternatively, you can send your inquiries to info@retinauk.org.uk. Contact us via the telephone on 01280 821 334 or call our helpline on 0300 111 4000, which is open Monday to Friday 9:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. If you would like to know more about our local peer groups, when your next meeting will be held, or if you wish to get involved in creating your own group, or would like to know more about our services that Retina UK provides, then please visit our information and support page on our website www.retinauk.org.uk and navigate to our local peer group page. Thanks again for listening. We hope to see you again soon. Take care and bye for now.